This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
My mother, Dolly Dimple Daly, and her family lived at Forest Grove, Mississippi, a little community just across the state line from Bloody Springs. The Forest Grove Baptist Church served as the social and religious center of the region, and that's where my mother and father's fateful courtship began. They would hold hands and walk home together from church at night, which in those days was considered dating. Mother's parents would walk close behind them with a kerosene lantern to make sure nothing funny was going on. But Dad's younger sister, Aunt Lizzie, was one of Mom's closest friends, and she would carry love notes back and forth between Mom and Dad. The notes would say something like, "Can you meet me at the church Saturday night?" Or, "They're having a candy pulling at Gummery Watts's house on Thursday evening. Would you like to go?" Or, "I sure would be proud if you could go with me to the cakewalk at the schoolhouse on Friday night." During their courtship, my Mom and Dad would meet for social activities that most people have never heard of today, such as watermelon cuttings, box suppers, cakewalks, and candy pullings. One of the most popular events was a candy pulling. They would fill a wash pot full of sorghum syrup and shelled peanuts, then cook them until the peanuts were done. After the candy cooled a bit, a guy and girl would twist and pull the candy with their bare hands until it looked like a twist of homemade chewing tobacco. Today, this candy is better known as peanut brittle. A candy pulling offered a sly way for a boy and girl to hold hands, laugh, talk, and become a little friendlier with each other. Box suppers involved beautifully decorated boxes filled with cake, candy, and goodies prepared by a young lady, and auctioned off to the highest bidder, which in most cases was the young man who wanted to date her. This event could become highly competitive if 2 or 3 young men wanted to impress the same young lady. It could also cost the young man who won the bidding war as much as a week's pay working at a sawmill or cotton gin. My Dad and Mom went to a lot of these outings and became sweethearts. My mother's father, Monroe Daly, was a righteous, Bible-carrying man who didn't put up with any nonsense. But her mother, Mary Daly, was a conniving woman who my Dad always thought had an eye for him. He believed that she wanted to live her life vicariously through her daughter Dolly. Dad said that when he went to church with my mother and her parents, her mother would often get down on her knees and pray. She'd say, "Lord, I pray that things will happen that have never happened yet." Dad took that to mean she was praying that he and my mother would get married. He said he doubted that her prayer ever got through the roof of the building. My mother was just 16 when she first fell madly in love with my Dad, and she wanted desperately to get married right away. Dad was in love with her too, but since he didn't have a steady job, he thought it best to wait a while. He was 10 years older than my Mom and wanted to wait until he got a job and some savings. But my mother was young and impatient and wanted to get married right away. So out of spite and frustration, she married a local schoolteacher named Lee Mann. Lee taught at a small country school called Frankfort in a little community in the Freedom Hills. He was a good man and well-educated, but my Mom married him only because my Dad wouldn't marry her right away. She only had eyes for my Dad and married Lee just to make my Dad love her more. Once my mother married Lee, my Dad realized his tragic mistake. He found out too late how much he really loved her and thought all was lost until he passed by the Daly house and Mom's mother rushed out to the road to meet him. She told him, "Herman, you should have married Dolly. She loves you, you know, and she only married Lee because he wouldn't marry her." Once Grandma Daly planted a seed of hope in Dad's mind, he resumed sending notes to my mother through his sister Lizzie. But this time, the love notes were of a far more serious and dangerous nature. My Dad told her, "Dolly, I love you with all my heart and want to be with you so badly. We could run away together, but I know that your father wouldn't stand for it and would send the law after me." My mother would write back, "I still love you too, Herman, and I don't want to stay married to Lee Mann. My marriage to him was a terrible mistake, and I'll do anything to be with you." A few days later, Grandma Daly met Dad again at the road and said, "Herman, Dolly's father will be leaving for Loretto, Tennessee to see his son, and will be gone for a week.